Topical, talk tech, topical, tech, tech, tech to the topical, tech, topical, text, mess, talk, show, tech, topical, tell me what the topic, yo, tech, topical, talk, tech, topic, show, the tech, talk,
I
the
made
tech,
the
tech, topical, tech, topical, text, mess, talk, show, the tech, topical, text, mess, talk, show, tech, topical, tell me what the topic, yo, the tech, topical, the topic is technical, tech, topical,
Hello,
talk,
everyone,
text,
and
mess,
welcome
talk,
to
show,
Tech Topical Text Best Talking Show. I am your host, Brian Ross. Let's go ahead and go over our stories for today. For today, we have three stories. Our first one is about Apple making a brand new car, and they have plans for it in 2024. We're going to be going over a shocking revelation by Elon Musk. Our second story, we also have this idea of recruiters aren't just recruiting employees anymore, they're recruiting entire tech companies to cities. We're going to go over that and go over the reactions from our expert panel. Then our last story, LinkedIn and bots. What's the deal there? We're going to do a deep dive into it and figure it out, because if there's something that's important to me, it's the integrity of LinkedIn. How else can I brag about all of my connections on LinkedIn? But first, before we get started, let's go ahead and meet our guests. They're sweet, they're sour, and then there's Sid. Back-end web concentration student at Make School, it's Sid Archidiacono. Thank you for coming, Sid.
Happy to be here.
Our next guest, you might know him as the wisest king of them all. It's Solomon Cohen, back-end web concentration student at Make School. Thank you for coming, Salo.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
I am so excited for this new format. As you all know, loyal watchers of Tech Topical, we took a break over the holiday season. Even I need a break sometimes, and I believe you do too. Make sure you give yourself permission to treat yourself. That's I think the most important thing I'll say all day. But today we're going to be going over a new format. I'm really excited to try this out. We are also live on Twitch. Hold on, I'm going to get it right now. So if you chat in the Twitch, I'm going to be able to see it. Make sure you're letting me know about your strongly felt opinions, because we are going to be going over some very interesting and hot button issues today, as we always do here on Tech Topical, the best tech talking show. So iCar, iCity, iCar. Apple, for our very first story. Apple has reportedly that it wants to build its first car, says Reuters. And this came as not too much of a shock to many people, because there's always been rumors about Apple wanting to make a car. But Twitter had a shocking revelation from Elon Musk, and he said, during the darkest days of the Model 3 program, I reached out to Tim Cook to discuss the possibility of Apple acquiring Tesla for 1/10 of our current value. He refused to take the meeting. Sid, let me ask you, what do you think? What's your reaction when you hear Apple wants to make a car? Is that something does that excite you? What do you think about that?
I mean, the one thing about Apple is that before they roll anything out, they really seem to make sure that it's pretty top notch and pretty top of the line. So, while I'm a bit skeptical, I have to say I don't know. I might be interested if it happens.
Yeah, Apple, I'm using an Apple product right now. I don't have any problem with Apple. I'm not an Apple hater. I'm more of a fanboy. But when I hear about them getting into cars, Salo, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, because there's so much that goes into making a car. Do you think they'd be able to pull something like that off?
Definitely, definitely. I think there's one thing that's true to Apple is that they before they do anything, they make sure the proof of concept works. I mean, Samsung had wireless charging and waterproof phones way before. Then Apple did it when they were sure they could, make it 110%. Basically, anything Apple related always comes out a little bit later, but they do so because they want their product to be the best. So I have no doubt that if Apple does pull off a car, it's going to be, comparable to like a Rolls Royce or something. It's going to be top notch, top of the line.
The chat is just blowing up, and they're saying, about time. I've been expecting an Apple car for years now. Well, good news, hydrochloric. I think your dream may be coming true sometime in 2024. So you're going to have to wait a little bit, maybe even gets pushed back a bit. They also they wrote a huge thing on it back in 2014. So excited about the idea. And Wild Schwein says, I can't wait to see more cursed looking cars. And someone mentioned, I think this is a funny idea. I would be really excited for an Apple car if I'm able to use the same charger for my phone. If I could just plug it in. The only problem is I always forget to charge my phone. And that's always been my worry with an electric car is what if I forget to plug it in, right? Is that going to be a huge thing? But there's something interesting here with this whole idea of car companies, because with the valuation of Tesla, which is worth, it just got put into the S&P 500, which means it's one of the top 500 largest companies in the entire world. You would think one of these big companies, because are they a tech company or are they a car company? Kind of feel like more of a tech company. And Google and Apple, you're kind of waiting to see, are they going to try and do something like this? But I looked into the economics of cars a little bit. This is kind of interesting. I wanted to share this with you. And it's interesting to think about that even if you love the product you're buying and it's a car and you're a car startup and you make the best car in the entire world and everyone who drives one loves it. And when they drive it once, they buy it. In that best case scenario, even if they love your product, how often are they going to be buying a car? They're going to probably keep that car for 4 or 5 years. And I think that that's a very interesting aspect to this whole debate is should we be having more companies go into the electric cars, or is there some sort of hybrid technology? Sid, what's your feeling on electric cars in general? Are you a fan of those?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I'm definitely into electric cars. I think that they have a lot of benefits. I actually kind of want to jump to something that Hydrochloric said in the chat, saying, I foresee a non-user owned fleet with a subscription to have an autonomous Uber-like service available at all times everywhere. I think that's really interesting when it comes to the possibility of Apple rolling out cars and thinking about, well, what if they don't do it just to sell cars? What if they do it as like a service? So I think that's pretty interesting. I'm not sure if you saw that yet, Brian.
That's a great idea. Salo, you could have your Apple Music and your Apple Car and pay for it with your Apple Card sent to you by Goldman Sachs. What do you think about that idea? Subscription car? Huh.
I mean, I think for it to work maybe in Europe and the US where the roads are clear and, everything works fine, it's not that far off into the future. What I wonder is, most, the Europe and the US, the roads and everything, they don't make up most of the car owners in the world. There's a lot of places, India, China, most of Latin America, that also are composed of the car market, albeit perhaps they're not into the newest car markets. But I don't think they have the infrastructure to support everything that's encompassed by electric cars. You need a whole infrastructure just to be able to charge them. And then B, the whole autonomous thing, it's going to be a lot harder in these types of countries. So I do think it's the future. I think it's the future closer in countries such as, maybe Spain, Germany, Britain, the US, Canada. But I don't know how far off the rest of the world is going to be into this. And of course, this is going to come into play for the car makers. Are they going to want to make a car that, it's a product that has a very limited market, so to speak, at least in the near term future?
Right. When you think about cars and you think about them being able to go anywhere, but electric cars are a little bit more involved. Let me ask you, because we are an international show. I don't know if you know this, viewers, but Salo, you're currently Zooming here from where?
Panama. I'm in Central America, Panama, where the home of the canal is. And all the things you guys buy on Amazon, they're probably shipped through here at some point.
Gotta love that canal, am I right? Do you see a lot of Teslas down there in Panama? Is that a thing?
All right, so I'll be honest. I know I can count them on my hand. There's exactly one gray Model Y, one white Model Y, and then one red Model 3 in the country.
Wow. I guess if you're going to be like the one person in the country with the Model Y, you probably have it all set up like to charge it at your house. They don't anticipate being able to charge it out and about, do they?
So here, basically, to give an idea, Panama's very, very small. 3 million total population, 1.5 million located in the city. And as far as I'm aware, there is one place where you can charge electric cars. I think it was placed by BMW, actually. There's also one of the little BMWs. And other than that, the owners of the cars have to charge them at home.
That's what's so interesting to me about what Tesla's doing, because when you think about an electric car, and if your idea is to be environmentally friendly, right, you want to be green. I have some friends of different political persuasions, and whenever I go to my Republican friends and I talk to them about Tesla, a lot of them are skeptical because they say, oh, that's great what Elon's doing because, wonderful. But the problem is you're charging your electric car using the power grid, and your power grid is getting its energy from coal plants. And I thought about that. I thought, well, that's actually not that bad of a point. And then I looked at the overarching theme of what Elon's doing and what Tesla's doing. And I think they're right about this idea of coal-powered plants charging the cars, which is why Elon Musk has started that solar panel company. Where you put the solar panels on the roof and they look really sleek. I have solar panels on my house. They're rather big and obvious, and you can definitely see them, whereas his looks super sleek. But I don't know if you can get it. I don't know if they had the same deal worked out, because I got mine. It was like kind of free. I don't know. It's a weird deal. Solar's kind of a weird market, but he has the solar panels. So the idea being that he can use his solar panels, get energy, use that to charge the grid, use that grid to charge his cars. And then it doesn't stop there, because if you have an electric car, it doesn't do any good if you can't drive it anywhere. So you need the batteries. So you need to now produce your own batteries, which Apple says that they can do. And there's a bit of this tweet above it that I didn't share, and Elon talking about why Apple's idea for better batteries doesn't exactly work. They tried that or something of that nature. And normally when someone says, oh, I tried that before and it didn't work, I'm kind of skeptical. Like, normally the reason why something doesn't work is because someone says that that's not going to work. And it's just that belief that stops it. But when Elon says it, I kind of believe him, because I feel like he tried everything. But that whole thing is interesting to me. The pipeline from solar panels to the car, to the battery, and then you have to dispose of the battery and all of that. And because it's such a monumental challenge, if I was Apple and Elon Musk called me, I feel like I would pick up the phone. Sid, would you pick up that phone?
I think I'm possibly biased. I definitely think, especially seeing where Tesla is now, even as opposed to where they were a year ago, that Apple possibly missed a serious opportunity. I think that I'm not exactly sure why, Tim Cook would have refused to take the meeting. Maybe this wasn't something they were thinking about at the time, or maybe they just wanted to do things their way. But I definitely think that from just a pure making money standpoint, they missed out, I think, just based on where Tesla is now. And who's to say if it would have been a good decision or not. I think, me personally, I would have heard him out just because of all the crazy things that he makes work, but I don't know.
You would think, right? And it says, the interesting thing here is the wording. He refused to take the meeting, Salo, which makes me think that he heard, who's calling me? Elon? No way. I'm not even going to talk to him. Do you think that's how it went down, Salo?
That in my head, that's how it went down. I mean, you gotta remember, Tesla, what it's been the last year, its value has grown literally 20-fold, which is insane. In just a matter of a little less than 2 years, they went from being a little piece of the automotive industry to literally being bigger than the rest combined. So, I mean, it depends really. The darkest days of the Model 3 program, maybe this was 2014, when people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of a Tesla, but I've never seen one in my life. So I guess we really don't know when this point in time was that Tim Cook said no. Perhaps it was so early on, and there was a time when Tesla had $1 billion lawsuit that they were figuring out how to pay off. So again, I think maybe if Tesla was worth maybe half, maybe if this would have been 2017, 18, 19, 20, Tim Cook could have taken the meeting. But seeing as this could have been, who knows, 2010, I guess we can't really, make any assumptions as to why he refused to take the meeting.
Yeah, that's where I was, Salo, because at first you want to say, Tim Cook, what an idiot, am I right? And then I thought about it, I don't know if I would have bought Tesla back then either. I don't know. There's too much fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But hindsight is always 2020 in the chat. I think we actually have someone who's there in the room, and Tim Cook said, just tell him I'm not here. Tell him I'm not here. But yeah, I definitely feel like there's more to the story than Cook literally refusing to discuss the opportunity. As Hydrochloric says, you can't trust anything these days, not even the journalists, not even Twitter, but you can trust Tech Topical. Moving on to our next story. The iCity. As I mentioned before, companies are now thinking about moving. It's been all the rage on tech Twitter. It's been all the rage in tech journalism. And people have been talking about our new paradigm and in our new world, how companies are thinking about how they can better streamline their operations, operate with more efficiency, especially in this remote work from home environment. And a lot of them are rethinking their current situations, which has led to some people coming onto Twitter, some mayors of some towns, trying to recruit these big cities to come. But a series of recent tweets from Suarez, of course, we're talking about Francis Suarez, mayor of Miami, for those of you who may not know. But a recent series of tweets from Francis Suarez seem to be kicking the movement into high gear, they write. On December 4th, in response to a tweet from Delian Zebulgar, a principal at Venture, I said that correct, I'm pretty sure, a principal at Venture Capital firm Founders Fund, saying Silicon Valley should move to Miami. Francis Suarez replied, "How can I help?" Oh. Suarez's reply went viral with more than 500 quotes or retweets, 5,700 likes, and millions of views. A separate video tweeted Tuesday by the mayor discussing Miami with Lucy Guo, a tech investor, has already been seen more than 55,000 times. But it's not been all peaches and cream for the mayor. Some people have reacted in a positive way, saying direct access to and engagement with a cool mayor in a hot city equals highly differentiated product for a free agent entrepreneur who can live anywhere. What Francis Suarez is doing may seem basic, but is absolutely brilliant. But is everyone happy? No. Ryan Lawler, verified account on Twitter, which is why I don't mind putting his name on our show. In most other contexts, providing millionaires and representatives of private enterprise direct access to a public official would not be considered a highly differentiated product. It would be considered corruption. But kudos to the VCs who couldn't buy influence in SF, finding someone they could buy. Sid, should I be fired up about this? Who should I be angry at here? Should I be angry at the mayor? Should I be angry at the tech companies? I need to be angry at someone, Sid.
I mean, who does it nowadays? This is a tough question to answer because on one hand, it's good for the city of Miami to bring in jobs. I know that I've lived in a city that really struggled for jobs and things like that. I lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan for a while, and for a short period of time, it had similar issues to Detroit where it was just lacking in the job market. And they were trying to, at the time, woo Amazon. And a lot of people in the city are saying this is really, really great. We need the jobs. We need the high paying jobs. And they pay more than anyone else, even for the lowest level jobs, like they're warehouse workers, than anyone else for that current industry. So it's a tough conversation because on the other hand, there absolutely is this conversation right now with, do tech companies have too much power and influence? And that's a hard question to answer because, for one, I'm not a political scientist. And also, it kind of just depends on what perspective you look at things from and what your views on the tech companies are and your personal bias and worldview. So it's a little tough. I, on one hand, kind of agree with the person who said anywhere else or any other kind of company, we would call this corruption. We would probably call out the oil industry for being in bed with politicians, although we kind of forgot about, things like that. And we would likely call out other industries as well. But when it's tech companies, why are we just saying this is great? I think kind of the snarky remark about, oh, you can't buy influence in San Francisco, so go find someone you can buy. I think that's a little naive. Yeah, no, I think it's naive. I think the mayor of Miami is trying to do something good for the city. And at the end of the day, having one of these campuses that employs, 100,000 people is really solid for the city. So I think he's looking out for the people he should be looking out for.
I appreciate that level of nuance. Unfortunately, I still don't know who to be mad at. Salo, do you think I should be mad at someone here, or what's your take?
Ryan Lewis. You should be mad at that guy. I mean, honestly, though, as Sid said, look, I lived in Miami for 5 years. Okay, so Miami is like home to me. And as Sid said, the mayor's only looking out for his people. So really, it's not a matter of corruption or not. He's not accepting bribes or anything. He's just telling them, look, how can I facilitate the process of you guys moving here? You know, if we generate 100,000 jobs of people that make over $100,000 salaries, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars pushed into the economy of a state. I don't know if you've been to Miami, but unlike San Francisco, where everything's so packed together and so close by, in Miami, it takes you like half an hour from your house to the supermarket just because of everything is so spread out. So, you know, bringing a lot of people is going to raise the real estate a little bit. It's definitely going to help the infrastructure. I don't know how it is now in Miami, but when I lived there, for example, the internet, it was not that good. You bring in a tech company, you're bringing in hella internet infrastructure. You're generating a lot of jobs through taxes. You're going to build a lot of buildings because these big tech companies, they like to have their huge headquarters, right? And so that's just many jobs on all types of the spectrum. You're going to bring everybody from, you know, the people that are going to clean these buildings to the project managers of companies. And these guys make millions of dollars, right? So you're bringing, for every level of the economy, you're going to bring purchasing power and people that are going to add at every single level. It's not going to be like, they're not going to exclusively shop at the top brands or exclusively buy at the bottom places. And same in real estate. They're not all going to live in the most expensive place or in the most economical place. They're going to be spread out everywhere. So personally, I think every mayor of every city in the US should be trying to incentivize not just big tech companies, anybody that's going to bring innovation and jobs and infrastructure growth to their cities. I think the guy's doing a great job.
Let's go ahead and look at the chat here. Hydrochloric says, I'm honestly really shocked no super rich tech company has created their own city yet, which I think is actually kind of a good point. And I've actually heard a little bit of rumblings about this, where these big companies are going to come and build these huge campuses where it's going to be like a city within a city. And maybe that might be the future, especially when you think about malls and traditional retail spaces, these places with huge amounts of space that are going, what's the percentage? Is it 30% of malls are supposed to be closed in the next 10 years or something like that? So there's going to be all this big real estate that could be used for something. You know, you have a building, you'd hate to just not use it, just have it sit there empty. So having a company come in, maybe you could even build some lodging in there and have employees live there and you have a city. I don't know. Maybe that's not such a bad idea. And again, in the chat, Hydrochloric says, I, for one, would much rather have tech companies ruling the world rather than our current governments, which is an interesting thought as well. I don't know if you've ever heard or played the game Cyberpunk, but I think that was their idea as well, with the big companies just taking over. But maybe it wouldn't be that bad, Sid. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad if, let's say, the bus was run by Amazon. I guarantee you the bus would not be late if Amazon was running the bus routes. Do you think that's a good idea, Sid? Should we just say, forget elections, let the corporate hegemony take control?
I'm sure there's a lot of conflicting opinions on this one. I think as far as letting Amazon run public transit, if it would still be affordable, let Amazon run public transit. It would be light years better probably than it is now in most cities. On the other hand, I don't know. I think given some of the censorship conversations that we're having in the last several months, and given like the Instagram new terms of service and some things like that, I think I'll take the current government we have, as crazy as it is, for another few years. I think that companies that want to be the consumer choice will do what the consumers want them to do, whether that's necessarily the move that reinforces liberties and freedoms for everyone or not. So if, you know, their user base says, we don't want to see this, we don't want to hear people talking about this, and we don't want anyone being allowed to do this, then I think that a corporation, it's in their best interest to say, okay, well, don't do that, so that the rest of these people stay here. So I, for one, think that yeah, maybe not a proponent of that at this moment.
Well, you just lost your corporate green card, so sorry about that. I don't know who I am. 321 says, I don't like either the tech companies or the government to have too much control, Salo. What do you think about that? Maybe no one should really have that much control. What do you think about that?
That's definitely something I've thought about before. I mean, I definitely agree. Tech companies, mainly Facebook, in my personal experience, is on the verge of having too much power. Well, I guess by that means Amazon and Google as well. They literally know more about you than you do about yourself. That's how they sell. So that's how they make such addictive content and sell things to you so easily, right? And I don't really know how I feel about that, other than Instagram in terms of service. WhatsApp, I know in the US, y'all don't use WhatsApp so much as you do iMessage, but in the rest of Latin America, and I believe the rest of the world, our primary tool of communication is WhatsApp. And I don't know how I feel about the new WhatsApp terms of service change. We don't really have an alternative choice. And now Facebook knows what you do, who your friends are, what you talk about with said friends. And so many things they sell to you through Instacart, they advertise through Facebook and Instagram, and they know what to advertise because they're probably snooping in on your WhatsApp conversations, right? So I don't dig that too much. On the flip side, I don't dig on the government having way too much power, but I guess the government's there because we trust it to do right by the power. So that was its initial purpose anyways. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing, right? Because the companies, we don't want them to do wrong just to turn a dollar, but the government, we say it's too powerful, but didn't we make it to be like that in the first place?
Right, because they need to have some power to have some regulatory ability. That's what it makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I keep going, I don't know. I don't know what to think about this because, you know, uh, going to your point about the algorithms, once these companies take over, these algorithms, they're really good and they can really make or break someone. And especially the ad selling algorithms. What freaks me out is when the ads start, I don't know, trying to predict my future or trying to figure out what's going on, because I'll see this happening. I'll have a YouTube ad and they'll sell me an ad for like Pampers diapers. And I'm like, uh-oh, why are you selling me an ad for diapers? Do you know something that I don't know? No problems there, of course, but still there's that issue. I don't know. You never know who is snooping on you. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Hydrochloric. Well, let's go to Eve of Magic. Eve of Magic says Intel is like that, talking about the campuses and the companies creating their own cities. Intel is like that, Eve of Magic says. Campuses are huge and they own the city, pay for and support many buildings, parks, and almost everyone in the city works for them. And also want to shout out Aaliyah, Eve of Magic, with the show right before this one. Love Eve of Magic. Great stuff. Learned how to make some fractals and all that great stuff. Shout out to Aaliyah. But anyway, talking about these cities, yeah, my reaction to Francis Suarez, I mean, if I was mayor, I would do the exact same thing. I remember when Amazon was looking to try and build a new campus and they were trying to find different locations. And it was like every city in all of America was trying to come up with these pitch presentations. And my local town, Galloway Township, we had this pipe dream of getting Amazon to come here, and we would have loved Amazon to come here because we have this huge airport that's not being utilized, one of the biggest runways on the eastern seaboard, which I would assume Amazon would be interested in, and then access to the Parkway and the Expressway. The Parkway goes to New York City, the Expressway goes to Philadelphia, and we thought this would be a great place for Amazon to come. They ended up not coming here because they had so many huger cities trying to recruit them, and it was just kind of an unlikely thing. But I don't know. I'm optimistic about this shift away from maybe one city to being maybe more spread out. And I think the tech company should be the most excited about it because there's so many cities, someone's going to be willing to negotiate with them, right? They'll be more than happy to take a 30-year tax break. And if I'm the mayor of Miami or the mayor of Philadelphia or the mayor of Newark or the mayor of any big city, I'll give you whatever tax break you want if you're going to come and bring all these high-paying jobs to my area. But just to talk about this a little bit, what do you think would be the line here? What's the difference between governments and private corporations working together? Where do you think it would go too far? Is there a moment like that for you? Or Sid, do you think there's what would too far look like? What's the dystopian version of this?
I think, I mean, like anything, I think there's a degree of nuance here, and maybe that should just become like my catchphrase. But at the same time, I think you could maybe say that the clear line or the most agreeable line is, when does the politician or when does the government start having too much of a conflict of interest? So, for example,
working in their interest, not our interest, right?
Exactly. So, and it's not even necessarily, I think most of the time these things do happen under the guise of, this is for your protection or this is for your safety. So there are countries right now who are using mass data collection of their citizens and things like facial recognition to apply not only more surveillance, but then more like regulation. So for example, I know China, I feel like most people are probably aware of this, has this like jaywalking thing where they have facial recognition cameras at every intersection. And if you get caught jaywalking, they send a ticket to your house. And I think when it becomes a level of surveillance such that it's very intrusive or it goes against all of these things in the social contracts that we've signed with our governments, or when the politicians are in bed to the point where they're personally benefiting from the financial or economic gain that these tech companies bring, I think that's kind of the line. And I think that it's kind of a hard line to spot, because I think a lot of times corruption in the form of finance in the pockets of our politicians is called lobbying or goes unnoticed a lot of the time. And I think that line of, when do these technologies and when does this data and when do these tech companies become government contractors who are then impeding on our rights and our freedoms, whatever that is based on like the country that you live in. It's kind of a hard line to find, because a lot of people, even right now, I see these conversations about, let's enact certain laws to restrict certain things, or let's like use these things for surveillance, or let's use these like policing machine learning models, for example, and we're not necessarily stopping to properly examine the biases. And these are things that could have a real impact on people. But it's kind of under the guise of, this keeps people safer. And so that's a tough line. That's a tough line to know exactly when we cross it. But it's, I think, maybe just something to be aware of when do we start to feel that happening?
Sala, I want you to react to some things here in the chat for me. Someone, I don't know who I am, 321 says, tech companies, although great at what they do, are far from the knowledge of how to run a government, even for just a city. There's a lot more that goes into the government than meets the eye. Bless you. Hydrochloric says, I feel like I've seen tech companies do right by the people throughout my life far more than I've seen the governments do so. And then I don't know who I am, 321 says, although slower, natural economic growth tends to be more sustainable, so long as it's progressing. Too much dependence on any one company, especially in the context of a city depending on one company to supply jobs for a city, will lead to a shifted power dynamic. Sala, what does all that mean? I didn't really.
Wow, that's a lot to break down. First, if I may add one tiny thing about what you asked, Sid, I think the dystopia, we are borderline there. I don't remember if the act finally passed, but the idea of such laws such as the EarnNet Act, that they look to end end-to-end encryption in benefit of the government, those types of things, in my point of view, should not be passed. I like how they do in California and in Europe with the GDPR-like laws in terms of user data, that it helps users be more anonymous and have their data deleted by companies. So I think right now we're at a monumental point in history where we've had more technology at most access than we've ever had before in our lives. And so, I mean, what I think is there should be a lot more people better vetted in technology and what all these, what the future consequences of all of this stuff is running in the government. Personally, I feel like the current people in most governments of the world are too old to understand all of these things with all of these new technologies. That being said, I mean, I do think that some companies especially recently, have been taking more care of their users. For example, I enjoy what Apple's doing, that they're starting to demand a higher level of privacy from the apps. You know, you can no longer spy on your app users as you could in the past. So I do think companies are moving in the right direction in that sense. That being said, I agree that, you know, having one company that's too strong, say for example, if Amazon gives you your Prime TV, so you watch TV through there, they ship everything to you, they feed you through Whole Foods, they give you the music, and I don't know, they host your servers and everything. I do think that's too much. But then again, that's why monopoly laws are created, right? I mean, there are things in the book that's made by the government, who again, we made that in order for them to protect us. There are things that are keeping such monsters from attaining, you know, full control. So I mean, I think it's just a matter of checks and balances. I think we're at a very weird point in history right now for the last 10 years where technology grew exponentially. You know, in 2007, you didn't see, most people didn't have a phone. You know, those that did, it was really expensive. Nowadays, not only does everybody have a phone, but everybody has a 500, 600, 700, you know, $1,000 phone, right? And we're talking about seven, you know, I don't want to say 7 billion, because of course not the whole planet, but a significant amount of people on the planet have a phone. So we're at a point where tech got really big, really quick. Legislation didn't evolve as fast around tech. And if we don't act soon on these things by people that are knowledgeable in both tech and legislation, then weird things may start to happen.
That's right. If you're old enough to remember 9/11, you are too old to be in government. Moving on to our next story. Not really, but moving on to our next story. I could stay there for the rest of the time, really. There's so much there to unpack, and the chat has just been going wild. And I would love to talk to someone. What's that say? Calf 128. When do you think the rest of the states will get on board with what California is doing in terms of personal data and its retention? And I think it has to go to what Sala was talking about. You probably need more tech-minded people in the government before you can start making sensible tech regulations. But moving on to our next story. Where is it here? LinkedIn bots. That's right, LinkedIn bots. So this is a story that is breaking here on Tech Topical, as far as I'm concerned, because no one else is talking about this issue, but I've been able to see it. And I want to share a little bit of my personal LinkedIn journey from rags to riches. But LinkedIn has a problem with bots. The platform has recently been inundated, said, with fake accounts. But why do these accounts exist? What purpose do they have? And let's just look at a few examples here. This one popped up on my LinkedIn feed the other day. Someone says, interested in working at Google? I blocked out the name just in case. But trust me, this is not a real person. I went to this account. I'm pretty sure it's a fake account. But they'll post things like this. They'll say, interested in working at Google? Like, who says no to Google, right? Google just released applications for the second round summer internship program, which you get to help shape products used by billions of people. That did not happen. There is no second round summer intern. It's definitely not going to be, if you keep reading. If you want to learn more about Google and get tips on how to best prepare for the interview process, just comment on this post with your email. And of course, everyone is putting their emails there, a bunch of at stanford.edu, at berkeley.edu, you know, people from very good colleges are putting their email addresses there, and it's completely fake. And I was always curious. I thought, well, why even have a fake account and make a post like this? I'm not even sure what it is that they're getting out of it. But the problem goes even deeper. When you look at your request, if you have something like Google on your resume, which now's a good time, I'll share a little bit of the story. So when I first made a LinkedIn, I was in community college, and I thought, cool, I'll make a LinkedIn and then people will reach out to me trying to give me jobs, because that's how the platform works. And I'll have all these connections of people trying to network and connect with me, a community college student. Did not happen. I was breaking out the address book, adding everyone who I could personally find, anyone who I knew was on the platform, and I got to like 98 connections, so not very many at all. No one was ever requesting me, et cetera, et cetera. I'd post and no one would look at it until I went to make school and I did that Google CSSI program, the Computer Science Summer Institute. The second I had Google on my profile, I was getting requests like 10 requests a day, 15 requests a day, and they wouldn't stop coming. But I started to notice a pattern with a lot of these requests in that a lot of them were fake accounts that look like this. Oh, I forgot I have their names on there. But anyway, these are fake accounts. Don't even worry about it. Because if you look at the images, those are composite images. And those jobs, it's a fake job posting. The whole thing is fake. Composite images. And it even gets even crazier. You have accounts like this. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, otherwise known as. And you can see he has the verified blue check mark in the photo. It's not an actual verified photo. And then if you look at the right, people also viewed, let's see here, Vince McMahon, executive producer at Responsible Money Management. I don't know, that might actually be his real account, but that's definitely not what he's known for. But Dwayne Johnson, look at his description. I will select a winner for today. Fast registration of your name by downloading my latest movie. And then it's a fake link. It's a bit.ly link. It could be going anywhere. And you never know. You could get someone adding you who might look like this one day.
Brian, if you
This
don't
is,
mind me
little-
asking for all of the people in the audience that don't know what a composite image is, could you elaborate on that a bit? Explain what that is.
Yeah. Great. So images like this, if you can see it, or images like this. A composite image is an image that looks like a real person, but it's not a real person. It's algorithmically generated through like AI and artificial intelligence and deep learning and all those buzzwords. You use those things and you can make a composite image to where you're making a bunch of faces. They look real, they look like a human, but they're not humans. And you can normally tell if you analyze them very closely. And the only real tells that you have is that the images are too perfect. They all have the same headshot with the same background. And there's always something off when you look at them. You just something's off, and you can feel it inside. I think that's that human intuition that robots will never have, but there's something there. Sid, you were in CSSI with me. What have you had this happen to you? Do you get fake accounts? Or is it just me?
I definitely have had a few fake accounts add me. I actually didn't have the crazy growth that you had right after adding CSSI to my LinkedIn. I'm not exactly sure why that was. Maybe I just wasn't vocal enough about it.
I don't know. It could have been anything. It could have been, I think a little bit of it was my fault too, because I figured I was supposed to add everyone else in the program, and then it starts to snowball, and then it gets crazy because then the fake accounts can find you because someone's going to. That's the other thing. They get really legit looking fake accounts. I know I sound paranoid, but I promise you they're fake, because they'll all add each other and then they'll all endorse each other. And then they'll all like comment on each other's posts. And I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. I think it's so they can build legitimacy to grab people's data, grab people's emails. Salo, have you encountered anything like this on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so unlike you guys, I did not attend CSSI. However, I've had a few accounts, and this is where it gets kind of sketchy. So I started learning computer science, August. I've had maybe 6 months of experience, 0 previous coding experience. And I have that right there on my LinkedIn. I have future backend web and data science engineer, like future, but I have the keywords that I'm guessing these programs look for. And so I realized that once I started, tweaking my LinkedIn to add these keywords, I didn't really even add more people than I had before. I started randomly getting job offers. They're like, oh, do you want to earn $100,000 working remote at a software position? And okay, yes, I'd be flattered to do so, but nobody in the right mind would look at a recently graduated high school student with absolutely no track record in software engineering and offer them that. So I've seen this happen. And of course, if I wasn't as skeptical, maybe if I did have, maybe I started coding when I was 10 years old and now I have 8 years coding, and I see this type of offer pop up, I'd be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll give you my info, hit me up. But I mean, and I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing, but thankfully, since I don't have so many years coding, again, not really sure if it's a good thing, I know that these things are fake because no real person would do that anyways.
That's a good point. If you were super legit, you might think that that's serious. And then here you go. Here's my name. Here's my address. Here's my email. What do you want? Social. Here's that. Wacky 3 digits on the back of my credit card. Here you go. You can have that too. But I don't know. Maybe it's not all the worst thing in the world, because I'm trying to think of different uses for these fake accounts. Sid, what would be another use for a fake account? Do you have a funny personal anecdote about this?
I do. So I can't share too much detail on this because this is still an ongoing contract. But
Don't
and
worry,
I
I'll
also
stay
want.
here in Tech Topical. No one will talk about it.
All right, what happens on Tech Topical stays on Tech Topical. So, and this, I just want to disclaim, this is solely me. This, from my understanding, is not something that is typical. So I was approached several months ago by a client who wanted to be low key on the internet, because of the nature of what they do. It's a security thing. So they effectively reached out to me and said, I want to make sure that these specific pages with my name don't show up on Google search, and I can't remove them, but is there a way to bury them? So I started doing some research, and there's a lot of companies that say they'll do this for you. But the thing is that what they do is they spam Google with a bunch of websites, and Google's caught on. So the way that the Google crawlers work is that effectively they don't. SEO is hard, right? And I'm coming to realize that this thing that I've come to call reverse SEO is even harder. So basically the way that the Google crawlers work is if there's something that doesn't have content, even though it has this person's name on it, it will not show up in search results. They might not even put it on the 10th page. It just might not even show up. Google, the crawlers are going to say this isn't relevant. No one's ever going to want to see this. It's a blank web page. So a lot of these companies will charge people a ton of money to say, we're going to get you off Google. People won't be able to find you. We're going to remove bad search results that you don't want to see. And that's fake. So what I started to do for my client, realizing how difficult this problem was start to make social media accounts. And because LinkedIn itself has really great SEO, it's almost always, LinkedIn and Facebook are almost always the first things to pop up on the first page of Google when you search someone's name. So I started to realize that the more LinkedIn accounts that my client had, although it's not my client, it's someone with the same name, and I have all these fake social media accounts for these people who have the same name as my client. And they, because they're run by me and they're not bots, they act and communicate with other people like a human. They don't say spammy things. I'm not trying to get anyone's email. I have built entire personas that go to a big university, that share posts, comment on posts, message people, things like that. And what's actually happened is that this has helped my clients stay anonymous online. So this is not everybody, but some of these very convincing accounts, I have to say, I feel like every once in a while you come across one where you're like, I don't think you're real. I don't think you work there, but you definitely seem to not be a bot. It's not a composite image. It's not this or that. And this actually seems to be a real person. And it's so convincing because it is.
Now I know who keeps posting kudos to you on all my posts. Salo, what is people in the chat are talking and they're saying, actually, Eve of Magic, Aaliyah from the show before, says, actually working on a project to get data of people's experience, etc. from LinkedIn. They have so many loops you have to jump through to get data from profiles beyond name and title. So maybe that's a part of it. Maybe this is a good way to get in there. CAF128 says, will there ever be a time that platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. come up with an algorithm to catch these fake accounts? You would think they would have the technology to do this, no? Ali Shabinsko says they use people's natural need to trust to do them wrong, and then a crying emoji. And that's true. That does, just to do them wrong. But in some cases, maybe it's not wrong, as in the case with Sid. Salo, do you think that that's possible? You have 6 months of computer science. You have a deep experience in computer science. Do you think that it's possible to? I think that's the hard part, to use an algorithm to tell if someone's a human or not a human, right? If a computer could do that, that'd be a pretty big breakthrough, would it not?
I mean, so here's the thing with the types of accounts that, for example, Sid told us that I had no idea that was even a thing. That's fascinating.
By the way, that VIP, Jordan or Neeson.
Okay.
It's not. Keep going.
Anyways, so as Sid said, those I don't think you'd be able to catch that type of thing, mainly because it is a real person. On the flip side, you'd think they have the algorithm. So I'll tell you a little bit of a little personal anecdote of algorithms trying to catch robots and mistaking them for humans, mainly me, and then actually being successful with a bot that was not working. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but currently in the past year, there's been an insane shortage of computer parts, mainly graphics cards, right? And so I know these people that they built a bot that auto buys graphics cards. So here's where the story gets funny. The company that everybody buys at, called Newegg, they caught on to this. And so they decided to make anti-bot measures. Thing is, people like me who spend all day refreshing that in order to hopefully buy myself a personal card, not to scalp them or anything, we're very quick. We spend all day refreshing, right? And so actually it happened to me more than once that I was able to do it. I went through and then they blocked my account and they told me no, because this is a bot. And then I had to fight and tell them, no, look, I'm real, I'm a human. And so they were like, oh, okay, cool, unlocked. And then on the flip side, I know people personally that actually do have bots purchased, and they've reached such a level of complexity that they beat CAPTCHAs and they beat email two-factor authentication. And so as far as I'm aware, the only retailer that's been able to get around this is Best Buy, because they have a really cool system. But both Amazon and Newegg have been completely unable to battle bots. So will the technology exist? Does it currently exist? I mean, maybe. Is it any good? At least for buying computer parts? No. They will lock out real humans and benefit the bot makers.
I mean, that's happened to me almost every single time I've logged onto Replit, which I'm sure make school students will have a common experience with me. These captchas are getting so hard. It's now at the point now where I mostly fail captchas because they're like, show me all the images with a bus. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know. Is that a bus? And it's like, sorry, you didn't get them all, because there was like a bus that was like 4 pixels big, way off in the background of this photo. And then I always fail them. And then the class goes on and I'm still trying to log on to Replit. It happens more often than I would like to admit. Someone, I don't know who I am, 321 says bots that beat two-factor authentication. That's intense. With even a +1 from Scoopy, or resident from Minnesota. And yeah, I don't know what the solution is here, because at a certain point, you would imagine that your smartest bots are going to be smarter than your dumbest humans, at least at some point. If we're not there yet, you would have to imagine that the trend, we'd get there eventually. So what would be an acceptable amount of leakage, of loss? What's the acceptable amount of bots? Because it seems like now we just have to live with this, right? There's no getting away from the bots. Is there, Sid? Do we just have to accept that this is life now, the new normal?
So similar to what Salo said, and kind of because of what Salo said, because so the resources that it takes to accidentally turn away humans that are often consumers, that are often either buying into your product or that increase people's desire to want to advertise on your product. If you accidentally turn away too many people, the resources of having to talk with these people and then verify that they're real and get them back on the platform, or deal with people being upset with you or whatever, ends up being more than just dealing with the bots. I think a lot of companies end up being a little afraid of kicking real users off their platform. And additionally, it's really difficult. I know, like Twitter, for one, I tag things, for example, if I tag something women in tech, there's like 3 women in tech bots that just automatically retweet within half a second. And it's not something that Twitter necessarily tries to like get rid of. I mean, this is a part of their platform. It boosts engagement and it helps people connect with each other, whatever. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a complex issue, because then people talk about, oh, are there bots that are spreading fake info, or, you know, these bots that are phishing scams, for example, on LinkedIn. If you end up kind of roped into an employment scam, I've been through those. They're really tough. it's a little tricky. I mean, you want to get rid of them, but sometimes they're super benign and all they do is just reshare content and make it look like you have more users on your platform for people to advertise to. So I don't know. Right now, it seems like something maybe we just live with for now. I'm not sure.
Maybe it's time for action, Salo. Maybe the battle lines have been drawn and now we're humans versus bots. Which side are you going to be on? Do you think we're getting there?
I'll take the bot side. So far, they've beat me 20-0, so I want to be on the winning side. No, I'm messing. See, this is where I say perhaps people in the government should not be, say, 65 years and older. Nothing against 65-year-olds. It's just there's less likelihood of somebody that's, above a certain threshold of age to be knowledgeable about so many technological things. There's in technology, as I've learned from studying make school, is so broad and wide, and there's so much to it that really most people can't even grasp the maybe 10% of it. So this is where I think that there should be some sort of limit. You know how, for example, there's a limit to how old you can be to drive, right? There's a limit as to how young you can be to run for president too, because you can't be too young, right? So I think there should be a limit, like a roof to how old can the lawmakers be, because at what point are they out of touch with what the current situation in the world is? Say if we had lawmakers that were contemporary with Zuckerberg's and Elon Musk's of the world, I'm pretty sure there would be more, better, stronger legislation. Perhaps even, for example, there's certain things that you can or cannot do online. For example, you can't sell drugs online. Why can't you? Because the people that are currently in the government, they relate to what selling drugs is. When it was their time, it wasn't online, it was on the street. So they know you can't do that on the street, you can't do that online. But they don't know what a bot is. They don't understand the harm that bots can cause because they can't relate to it, right? Rather, if we had somebody, maybe a little bit older than us, that maybe they tried to have their own website, their own startup, their own thing, or maybe that they faced a battle against bots in their daily lives, they would understand the impact it has, and then they would pass legislation, and they would have, for example, if you try to make a website to do illegal things, I don't know who's going to contact you, but I'm sure somebody's going to contact you and take it down because there's some agency that intervenes. Now, what I'm saying is there should be agencies that intervene whenever there is massive bots or data leakage or these types of things that affect us in our current times.
Ali Shabinsko from Salo's comment. I now see bots are equivalent to the privilege that big corporations have over mom and pop stores when it comes to their purchasing leverage. It's harder to compete against them. Maybe this is the new way. It'll be hard to compete, but maybe it's easier to become a bot maker than a large company that can compete with corporations. Someone loves the buzz cut, and someone else, I don't know who I am, 321. There are always new technologies, but technology is old. Ali Shabinsko, or maybe have lawmakers pass an annual test like other professionals must do in order to keep their license updated. They would also include an ethics test. Hydrochloric, of course. Anyone who watched Congress live after they reconvened the other day that the Capitol got stolen saw they're also out of touch. It's absolutely shameful. I don't know who I am, 321. I believe that the voting process for election positions. There is so much going on in the chat. Unfortunately, we are out of time here for today. And I would love to talk about this idea of entrepreneurs and tech people getting into politics. Someone else mentioned that I myself am a bot. Maybe I am. We could talk about it as a simulation. All of that we will have to wait for next week, unfortunately. But thank you so much to my guests, Sid Arshadiakino and Salo Cohen. Thank you again so much for coming on. This has been Tech Topical. Make sure you like and comment and subscribe to the Twitch. We have a Discord. Go ahead and put that in the chat, what the Discord link is. And you can follow us, make.sc/Twitch, whenever we are live, which is Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Western Time. And thanks for coming to the show. Let's rock out to the intro. I just made this yesterday. You want to hear it again? Here we go.
Tech Topical, Tech's best talk show. Tech Topical.
Wait, bye.
Topical.